The novel The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris, published in 1988, was adapted into an American horror thriller film in 1991, directed by Jonathan Demme. Both the movie and the novel follow FBI trainee Clarice Starling as she receives the help of an imprisoned cannibal to catch Buffalo Bill, a serial killer who skins his victims. The story begins with Clarice traveling to the Baltimore State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, where she is told by Dr. Chilton, the director of the mental institution, that she must interview a cannibalistic serial killer named Hannibal Lecter, as he is likely to know the whereabouts of Buffalo Bill. Bill abducts a senator's daughter named Catherine Martin, and Lecter is promised a prison transfer if he provides information that helps them find Bill and rescue Catherine. The novel and film depict Bill as a tortured and self-hating individual. Believing himself to be transgender, he wants to become a woman but is too psychologically disturbed to qualify for gender reassignment surgery. He chooses female victims and starves them until their skin is loose enough to easily remove, so he is able to create a suit for himself to wear, as if to feel like a woman. When Clarice first goes to visit Lecter to get information on the case, he is fascinated by her as they begin to form an unusual relationship. The authority he seems to have over her displays itself prominently in the scene where they first meet. Clarice is first shown walking through the corridor where the inmates are kept, until she gets to Lecter's cell. She is seen walking alone nervously, being called on by other inmates such as Miggs, who makes a crude remark towards her. The novel and the film portray the situation differently, as in the novel Clarice has a bodyguard walking with her down the hall. The guard continues to stay with her while she speaks to Lecter, giving him less authority as he is being watched with what he says. In the movie, however, this gives him more power in the scene.
Good morning.
Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
You're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you?
I am, yes.
May I see your credentials?
Certainly.
Closer, please. Closer. That expires in 1 week. You're not real FBI, are you?
I'm still in training at the academy.
Jack Crawford sent a trainee to me.
Yes, I'm a student. I'm here to learn from you. Maybe you can decide for yourself whether or not I'm qualified enough to do that.
Previously being a psychiatrist, Lecter begins to psychoanalyze Clarice, looking into her past and bringing up unwanted thoughts and feelings. This can be analyzed through her facial expressions as she shows clear discomfort and defeat towards the situation. Lecter digs into her personal unconscious as she begins to remember all the repressed feelings she had built up over the years about her past.
Oh, Agent Starling, you think you can dissect me with this blunt little tool?
No, I thought that your knowledge...
You're so ambitious, aren't you? Do you know what you look like to me with your good bag and your cheap shoes? You look like a rube. A well-scrubbed, hustling rube with a little taste. Good nutrition's given you some length of bone, but you're not more than one generation from poor white trash, are you, Agent Starling? And that accent you've tried so desperately to shed, pure West Virginia. What does your father do? Is he a coal miner? Does he stink of the land? You know how quickly the boys found you. All those tedious, sticky fumblings in the backseats of cars while you could only dream of getting out, getting anywhere, getting all the way to the FBI.
You see a lot, Doctor.
When Lecter speaks about Clarice's past, he brings up her father, referencing to her West Virginia roots and how he must have been a coal miner. Instead, she later tells Lecter that she was raised in a small town in West Virginia with her father, but who was instead a town marshal. When she was about 10 years old, her father was shot when responding to a robbery and had died a month after the incident. Clarice seemed to have a close relationship with her father, as she has multiple flashbacks of the two of them together. Even when attending one of the victims' funerals, she sees her father in the casket instead of the girl. This goes to show that the memories of her father were buried deep inside her unconscious, hidden by her persona, until her past had been analyzed. In contrast to the novel, Lecter does not bring up the father at all, but instead the mother, claiming that Clarice wishes to not be like her. Although Clarice did have a rough relationship with her mother that can bring about angry emotions, the love she had towards her father was much more prominent, which is why the director had chosen to implement that part of her life in the scene, as it added sadness and emotion for Clarice, giving dominance to Lecter. The music played in the movie was composed by Howard Shore, featuring the Munich Symphony Orchestra. In much of the movie, there's music that subtly plays in the background. It gives a tone of eeriness and the feeling of being uneasy. The somberness of the music helps create these feelings, which leads to an easy identification that this is a horror or thriller film. In both the novel and the film, dim light is used and described to make the scenery appear frightening and give off a cold feeling. When looking specifically at Lecter's cell, his light is noticeably on, brightly shining, compared to all the other cells. This brings him a sense of superiority, as the difference is featured as soon as a swift transition occurs from cell to cell. Through cinematography, Demme creates a power struggle between the two characters. This framing shows Lecter and Clarice as equals, cutting back and forth on the same eye line. The two characters' eye lines are a major signifier of the power shift throughout the scene. Although once Hannibal lands the first blow, the camera moves over the shoulder as each character builds up a defense. From then, one camera always looks slightly down on Clarice and slightly up on Lecter because he has the power in the scene. Demme cuts between close-ups of the two as the dialogue progresses, in which Lecter looks the lens in the eye, but Clarice looks off-camera, putting the audience into her head. This scene analysis displays the importance of eye lines and camera angles in terms of establishing space and representing the power in which a character may have over one another. A prominent material item that is used in the scene as a prop to enhance where Lecter falls in society's social hierarchy are his paintings. He tells Clarice he paints them from memory and that he wishes to have a real view to look at one day. His paintings do not represent a form of commodification, as he only wishes to use them for himself. Lecter also used to be a part of the bourgeoisie, as he was an experienced clinical psychiatrist making a lot of money. Now he has instead lost all that he has, becoming imprisoned for life. The costumes worn by the inmates, including Lecter, are pieces that signify obedience, as they are forced to follow instructions in their own separate structure from society. In comparison, Clarice, Dr. Chilton, and the rest of the FBI workers all signify wealth and prosperity, as they can all be seen in suits and ties. The role of Clarice Starling is played by actress Jodie Foster. Demme wasn't sure if Foster was right for the role, even though she had already won an Academy Award in 1988 for the film The Accused, where she played the role of a victim in a gang rape. She seemed to be able to use different forms of acting in each movie, as in The Accused, her character Sarah is on the defensive side, standing up for herself when being interrogated about the rape.
How are you dressed?
What's that supposed to mean?
It means were you dressed provocatively? Showing a lot of cleavage, see-through blouse?
What the fuck difference does it matter how I was dressed? They tore it off of me.
But did how you...
This goes to prove that she can easily play any role, as in both films she similarly stands up for women, defying female stereotypes. The role of Hannibal Lecter is played by actor Anthony Hopkins. Before The Silence of the Lambs, Hopkins starred in two specific movies that made his career take off, being The Elephant Man and Magic. When seeing his level of acting in these films, Demme decided to cast him as Lecter, where he then won Best Actor at the 1992 Oscars, along with Jodie Foster. The role of Buffalo Bill is played by actor Ted Levine. After stage experience, Levine began to devote his work during the 1980s towards finding roles in film and television, where he finally got his breakout role as Buffalo Bill. In my opinion, the film is aimed at an adult audience as it is quite violent and brutal. I believe that the concept of the plot would be too intricate for younger audiences to grasp, such as the psychology behind Lecter and the motives behind Buffalo Bill. When looking at The Silence of the Lambs as a whole, it is seen as a masterpiece in both fields of filmography and literature that each display feminist, Marxist, and undoubtedly psychoanalytic notions.